The definition of adversity in the dictionary is distress, affliction, hardship, an unfortunate event or incident, right? Based on that definition, every human being in this world faces that at some point. Is they're going to face distress, affliction, hardship, an unfortunate event or incident, right? Everyone is. Yeah. Hopefully never on the extreme scale I have, but there's people who have had it worse off than I have, right? So I can't look, and so everybody is on the same playing field in terms of adversity. So the only question is, if we know we're all going to face it, the question is, when we do face it, are we going to react or respond? Because when we react, it's not thought through. It's done in haste. It's done on the fly. And it's throwing a fit in the moment and getting all emotional and pissy. And that's a reaction, right? Going, this is not fair. I can't believe this had to happen to me. Why this happened? Why me? Why me? Right? Where a response is preceded by thought. It doesn't say why me. It says what now?
This is Uncommonly Remarkable. We have surprisingly casual discussions about the lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. Think of this podcast as an opportunity to learn something new and to pick up on an entrepreneurial tip or two through open conversation. I'm Artis Beatty. I'm a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for My Eye Doctor OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and conversations held here are separate from my work with My Eye Doctor. Welcome to the show. Hey, Matt, it is fantastic to have you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I am excited to have you here on the show.
It's awesome to be here, man. It really is a privilege. Thank you very much.
You know, as I've gotten the opportunity to talk to people over time, I've also gotten the ability to kind of pick and choose the types of stories that I think resonate with the audience and things that are really important or interesting to me. And I read a lot about your story, but there were a few things that really said, I got to talk to this guy. And the thing that resonated with me the most is you said, in your words, life gave me a story worth writing and taught me some lessons worth passing on. I love to inspire, encourage, and motivate others to view their adversity through a new lens and to do life better.
Yeah.
And that is a powerful, powerful statement. And so we're going to talk about what got us here today, because I think that is an amazing way to look at life. So tell me a little bit about you. Tell the audience a little bit about you, and we will kind of go backwards to come forward.
Well, do you want to talk about who I am today first? You want to leave that for later?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how you. Let's talk a little bit about you today.
So today I'm a blessed man. I really am. We're gonna talk about how I live with my neck's a little bit bent, my body's a little banged up. I can't run. I can't be athletic. My left arm is paralyzed. Right. So I got some issues, but I'm a blessed man in all regards. I'm married to a beautiful woman, an incredible wife. Together we have 7 kids. She has 3. I've got 3, and I'm actually adopting her kids right now. In fact, it finalized on the 31st of July. And
oh wow,
we got 1 together, so we have 7 kids total, ranging from age 2 to 20. So we got quite a range, but life's a blessing, man. I love it. I mean, I always joke around that 7 kids in 1 arm is bad math, but it's still funny, It's still fun to live with. But it's I live as a motivational speaker and author, and I travel and I speak and I encourage and I lift up. And then I also work pretty much full time as a life insurance and retirement specialist agent. I run my own business doing that, and so I help people just better their family in all regards. So I get to help people better their lives in lots of ways, including, of course, financially. So it's pretty neat to be able to have a story worth sharing, as I said, right? And some lessons worth passing on. So when I stand on the stage to speak, I got a platform because I share my story. And as you're going to hear today, I have a platform to share it from, because when we talk about adversity, I pretty much have every right to talk about adversity, right? And you'll hear that as we go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that first of all, congratulations on the adoption, and
thanks.
Wow, how nice it is to have this beautiful family, and your family played a huge role in parts of your story, it's just kind of full circle speaking about that. So to set the background a little bit, I told you before we got started that I really did not know that there were professional snowmobilers. And so I grew up in the South, by the way, so that's probably part of it. And, barely snows here. And it wasn't really until my adult life that I got to see real snow. I
Mhm.
had a great friend after college, and I went to Colorado, and we really saw snow. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. But you were a professional snowmobiler, and you were very successful at doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is that I wasn't actually full blown professional because there's only just a very few full blown professional snowmobilers that usually race and hill climb and film and everything else. I only rode in the film circuit, and most of the guys in the film circuit are obviously conditioned athletes, very good at what they do. I was one of the better ones out there, but I only did that on the weekends as a side gig, and so I didn't really get paid per se like a
Ah, I
salary,
see.
but I got free snowmobiles and free gear and free stuff, and so it was free trips and got to go all over the Western U.S. and Canada, and so that part of it was definitely well worth the pain. That was better than the paycheck, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I count that, man. If you're
Yeah,
getting free snowmobiles and you're getting travel and
yeah.
getting to do those things for film, that's pretty darn impressive. How did you get into snowmobiling?
My parents had a small resort in my hometown. They founded the resort, and they eventually launched a small line of snowmobile rental, like a rental fleet of snowmobiles. And my dad used to ride when he was younger, and so we've been around them a little bit. But when the rental fleet came in, then on the days off when the sleds weren't being used, we would take them out and ride together and try them out. And I fell in love with it right away. Just like this is it just felt really neat to me at home, like really freeing. And I love the feel of the powder snow and the softness of deep snow, and just the whole thing is like a freedom. And so
Yeah.
I rode those for a little bit, and then when I went to college, I got it my first year of college. I got a decent job on the side as well, and so I was able to go to my local credit union and get a loan to buy my first brand. I was young and dumb, so instead of buying a used one like I should have, I bought a brand new snowmobile. Bought it brand new off the showroom floor, first one I've ever had, and just rode 3,800 miles that first year and absolutely fell in love with it. And anyone will tell you that 3,800 miles in one season on a snowmobile is a lot of miles. So I
Wow.
began to take out groups from my parents' resort and be the unofficial guide per se, and show off for them and have a good time. And I just fell in love with the sport, and I wasn't really planning on riding at the pro level. A good friend of mine I met in college. He was a very conditioned athlete on snowmobiles. His name's Tim, and he he was actually honestly probably still to this day is better than I was. He just didn't care to be noticed. He never got at the pro level because he didn't want to be, but he had gotten an invite from a film crew that said, "Hey, we've heard you can ride pretty well. Would you want to come ride with us?" And the film crew is 509 Films, which has now become the biggest film company in the industry. But anyways, they told Tim, "Hey, we'd like to have you come ride with us sometime." He said, "Well, I've also got a friend that you're probably going to also want on camera that he's pretty impressive too. Can I bring him along?" And so he brought me
Wow.
along for
Yeah.
that first trip. And again, after that first trip, we put up some pretty impressive footage, and we climbed some stuff we probably wouldn't have climbed on an average day, but put up some pretty sick lines. And so after that, the phone calls kept coming. They said, "Come back, ride again." They wanted so after that first year, the next year was my probably my best overall appearance was. I mean, it's probably my second best overall appearance was the second film I wrote and was called Vertical Ascent. And that film,
Hmm.
I had like lots of great segments. We had a great time in Canada that year with great weather and great snow. And so it's a lot of the writers at the film premiere joked around. They said they should have just called this film Matt Potratz, because I was blessed with a lot of great segments. But after that, the phone calls kept coming in, and then a second film company started calling, and so I ended up riding in 7 different snowmobile motion pictures total, and became one of the elite guys in the world. I guess you say in a way. I've ridden with the top 5 guys in the world, so it was pretty awesome to get to experience that just almost on accident, just by sharing my passion, love what I do, and I was always an athlete growing up, so I was always very athletic. But then when I
Uh-huh.
got in the pro circuit, I started working out more and started being more conditioned and became a conditioned athlete. So it was it
That's
was by
incredible.
accident, but yet I fell in love with it in a heartbeat. So
And so, how long were you riding? Like you started, how long were you actually riding before you had the accident?
I would say I was almost right at 12 years, and so 12 seasons of a lot of writing, and then I had only rode the pro level for 5 years, so rode in
Okay.
7 films in 5 years. So
Wow. Wow. And so one day you were out doing what you love. You were filming,
Yeah.
and things went awry. So can you take us back to that day
Yeah, it
and
was
talk a
interesting
little
that
bit about that?
that day we knew there was potential avalanche concerns. And actually, there almost always can be in the mountains we ride in. Right, they're steep, they're deep. So if you stayed home every day, there was an avalanche risk. You'd never get to ride. Right. So
Mm,
we knew there was a risk. We knew it could happen. But that day, particularly, there was a little higher risk. So we tried to stay off the bigger stuff. In fact, earlier that day I said no to a very big chute I usually climb. It's a pretty impressive line. It's a really narrow, steep one. I said no to it because it didn't feel right. So we moved to the Brundage side of the mountain, which is a different side of the mountain where there's more trees and rocks and stuff to hold snow in place, right? So we moved over
hmm
there, hoping that we would escape that a little bit, and ended up the one chute over there that I've climbed it a few times, and when I went to climb it, the very trees I thought would hold the snow in place ended up becoming my worst enemy because I went up, I broke out on the face of the top, and I was almost over the top, and the avalanche broke off 25 yards above me. And when they break off above you like that, there's almost nothing you can do. It just consumes you. It was 2.5 feet deep, the whole mountain. And it sent me off a small wall of rock, and the very trees I thought would protect me, keep the snow in place, ended up being my worst enemy. I got just wrapped up and crushed into the trees and buried
Oh my
below the
goodness.
trees. And they use we all were trained and knew how to use avalanche beacons. We wore beacons. The beacons go in a pocket on our chest. All day long, the beacons transmit the same signal. So if someone goes down, the group pulls theirs out, switches their beacon to search mode, leaving one beacon in transmit mode, which of course in this case is my beacon. So within minutes, their beacons told them which way to walk, where I was at. They found my fingers sticking out of. Well, first they're like they thought they found me really quick because they saw my helmet sticking out of the snow. They rushed over to it, dug all the snow around my bright orange helmet. They picked up an empty helmet, a fully intact chin strap, but no mat in sight. So as you can imagine, they in near panic. They're like, "Oh my gosh, how in the world is it? I mean, this helmet's gone, right? The chin strap, but
Right, with the
apparently the
chin
force
strap.
of blow to rip my chin strap up my face, put a brazen up my face, rip the helmet off my head. So they rushed around the avalanche beacons and found my body. They found my fingers sticking out of the snow. But how do you find a pair of fingers on a mountainside full of snow without some kind of guidance? So I believe that beacon saved my life and the training saved my life. But they found my fingers. They dug down a full arm's depth. I'm a pretty tall guy, so I was down a really deep full arm's depth. They found my body, found my ears, nose, mouth, complete pack with snow. They knew they had to be careful not to move me, unsure of my injury at that point, right? And so
Yeah.
they did their best. They took a finger and fish shook the snow out of my mouth to get my airway opened up. And I was breathing, but fully unconscious, make like a lot of weird wheezing and hissing noises. And they yelled my name and slapped my face and could get nothing. I had no response. I was unconscious. So they knew they had to get somebody out there ASAP. And so my best friend Tim was there, and he ran to the top of the ridge with his cell phone to call for a helicopter. And he had got just enough cell phone signal out, but about that time it started snowing hard, like just pounding snow. I guess you could say like the weather decided it was going to replenish the snow that slid off the mountain, right? And so my friend got a phone call out to a helicopter, and they got a helicopter en route. There's a perfect lake bed by the avalanche site they could have landed, but the helicopter flew as far as they could and could not get there. They got rejected by the snowstorm.
The
So
snowstorm
they had
got
to
in
get
the
me
way.
covered up
Wow.
with a space blanket and a tarp and everything, get me out of the snow best they could. They had to dispatch a ground crew to come out. We were way back in the backcountry, so it took a long time to get there. An hour and a half, 90 minutes later, the ground crew arrived, and my friends had to watch me lay there unconscious and wheezing for an hour and a half, waiting for something to happen. The ground crew immediately said, "Man, if there's any way to get a helicopter out, we have to. This is serious business." So they made a second attempt to fly, and they still couldn't get there. This time they made it to Brundage Ski Hill, which is a little bit closer.
Hmm.
So they got me on a sled, towed me across the ground, got me to Brundage Ski Hill, got me in the helicopter, and the snow broke enough to get the helicopter in the sky en route to Boise. They landed at St. Alphonsus Medical Center in Boise 5 hours from the time of the avalanche, 5 hours. And
Oh my
right on the
goodness.
helipad, they took the gurney out of the helicopter. Right on the helipad, what they all feared happened. I stopped breathing. I died essentially. And they rushed around, of course, resuscitated me, got me breathing again, and pushed me to ER to discover the avalanche had just crushed me, man. They found a broken neck, C4, 5, and 6 were all crushed. Compound fractured left finger, blew my left femur in half. There were actually bone fragments on the x ray. Crushed left rib cage. It broke my top two left ribs off the sternum and caved in my left lung. And then they were puzzled, like, first of all, they're like, how's a helmet get off his head? And again, they discovered the force of the blow must have been enough that there were abrasions on my face where the chin strap had gone up my face and ripped that thing off my head. So the biggest concern was I bounced off a tree like a rag doll, no protection around my
Hmm.
brain. They found hematomas on both sides of my brain, which is, of course, blood clotting, blood pooling, brain damage, right?
Wow.
The initial report of my family was we're not yet going to spend the money to start treating Matt's injuries because we don't think he's going to survive the night. And so my family had no idea. They say never lost the faith. They kept praying, kept believing, and we're people of faith, and more so now than ever. And 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 the next day, of course, I was alive, but they're like, okay, he survived, but it's time for a reality check. We need to see if there's any hope here at all, because he said he's really only living because a machine is keeping his body alive, right? It's breathing for him. They said we need to find out if we got any brain activity. And so they do what's called
Hmm.
painful stimuli because even in a comatose state, which I was in a comatose state, your body should respond in some way to pain. So they began to again poke me and prod me, shake me and move me and inflict pain on me and dig under your fingernails and things like that, right? They got nothing. I showed no response. So the doc gathered my family and he said, look, it doesn't look good here. It doesn't look good at all. But he said, I'm going to try one last thing. He said, I'm going to hook a brain scan him out. With the brain scan in place, I'm going to again inflict pain on him. And he said, if the scan doesn't show some kind of response, we're in big trouble here. He said, is there any hope here at all? His brain has to respond to our input. And so they did so. They hooked the scan on my brain and began to again poke me and prod me and shake me and dig into my fingernails and do all the stuff that would cause pain. And they got nothing on the scan. And the last thing the doctor did just to confirm it, he picked up my broken leg, my shattered femur, had not been fully treated yet,
Hmm.
picked it up off the table a little ways and just let it free fall, dropped it, whack. And I mean, I don't think I got to explain to you guys that would cause extreme pain, right? And the scan didn't really show anything to get excited about. So he said, look, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, short of a miracle, Matt will not be with us anymore. He said, as I said before, technically he's alive because the machine is breathing for him. He said, outside of that, essentially, Matt is brain dead. His
Oh my
brain has no
gosh.
response. And so my family just sunk back in shock, thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to let our son go and our brother go. And I mean, oh, wow, you know. But again, they just had faith. They had resolve. My dad said, "No, doc, I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to accept that yet. I want a second opinion." Reluctantly, the doctor agreed. And so when he went to try to find a second opinion, my phone calls, texts, emails began to erupt across this nation with one message: pray. Matt's dying. Pray. And in fact, even across the world, because my mom's family happened to be world missionaries, and they at that point in time, and they had teams overseas praying as well. So prayers went up across the world. And my dad went down to the waiting area, got some of the closest friends together, and came back to the room and just laid hands on me and began to essentially just beg God for mercy at this point, right? I mean, they're just crying out for my life. And they've been in there about an hour and a half. They started to kind of accept reality that okay, we probably better say goodbye to Matt, right? It's probably time to just
Hmm.
accept reality. But then again, a friend of mine, John Heston, who also used to ride at the pro level, he was in the room and he spoke up and said, guys, I don't know why, but I have this feeling like Matt knows we're in the room, like he knows we're here. Why don't we see what happens if we try to get him to respond? Let's give it a shot if we try, right? They said, okay,
Yeah.
sure. And so John got right in my face and yelled, Matt, it's John, if you can hear me, raise your right leg. And I couldn't raise my leg, but to their shock, they're like, he tried it, it moved it, he moved it, he moved his leg, he tried to move it, right? And so they played a little bit more, got me eventually lightly squeeze a hand. Of course, I rushed from him to get the doctor to tell him what had happened. And he came walking back in. My dad described his behavior to be poor bedside manner because he was pretty
Yeah.
sure we were wasting his time. Which, in his defense,
He
I get
was
it. I mean, he's like,
he
"Look,
was
man, there's no hope
skeptical,
here,
right?
right?" He said, "Doc, no, check this out." They eventually got me to lightly squeeze his hand. I don't think that many people argued that that was a miracle. I got my miracle. You know, I mean, a lot of time had passed after that. I squeezed the hand. That was exciting, but I remained in a coma for a long time. 10 days in my coma, 10 days into it, something incredible happened. Will never be forgotten in my lifetime or theirs. My boys are much older today. I've got my three blood boys are they're 17, 18, and 20 now, but they were very young then. Like my oldest was 4 and a half then. And so they've been told that daddy got hurt real bad and just needs to sleep for a while. They're not been allowed to see their dad yet. And so they were told we just need
Hmm.
to wait and see, let daddy sleep for a while, right? But thinking I was sleeping, they were told we can pick up the cell phone though. We'll call your daddy. We'll put a cell phone in his ear, and you guys can talk to your dad while he sleeps and see if he can hear you, if he can hear you talk to him. They pondered that for a
Yeah.
minute. My oldest boy, Connor, says, "No, we really don't want to call Daddy and talk to him." Their mom's like, "Why?" He said, "Because I want to call and sing to him." Here's why.
Amazing.
I used to play guitar. I can't play guitar today. I only have one arm. My left arm is totally paralyzed. So I miss my guitar so bad. Miss honestly miss my guitar worse than I miss my snowmobile. But I used to play guitar, and my boys love to sing and dance with the guitar, and they were very young then, but they loved to sing out the best they could. And the only song they really knew how to sing out on was the chorus of the song, "You Never Let Go" by Matt Redman. And the chorus simply said, "Oh no, you never let go through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go. Lord, you never let go of me." So they want to sing that song. So they said, okay. So
Oh
they
my
put a
gosh.
cell phone in Daddy's
Amazing.
ear, and my boys sang "You Never Let Go" to their daddy in a coma. And here's the incredible part: I really believe a miracle happened during that song because at that moment, I have no memory of this, but they recorded the fact that I raised my eyebrows and tried to smile. I obviously heard my boys singing, right? And from that point forward, I began to show more response to stimuli. I began to show more response to input and squeezing hands and commands. And but I was coma. I remained in the coma for 41 days. And I came out of the coma in
Wow.
41 days. Had a long recovery journey of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. I was in a wheelchair in the beginning, and I was hospitalized for 88 straight days, going through all that therapy and routines. And 88 days in hospital. I'm going to explain to you that's a long time. It's like being in prison
That
because
is a
you're
long time.
stuck behind walls, right? But I walked out of the hospital 88 days later and went home, and I'm my life's never been the same, and it's been challenging. It's been ups, been downs, been highs, been lows. But I just kept pressing on. One of the most fundamental things that I hung on to from day one, and I've had it. In fact, I had it on the inside of my binder at work before the avalanche even happened. It just said in big bold print, "Focus on things you can change."
Mm,
Because I can't change the avalanche, right? I can't change how bad it hurt me.
right.
I can't change the fact my arm's paralyzed. I can't change all these things, right? What I can change, the only thing I can change is my response to it. And so I've just
Yeah.
chosen to focus on things I can change and keep pressing on. And I mean, I had a very near suicide with extreme nerve pain, and I had all kinds of challenges. I was not perfect. I had bad days, but honestly, through it all, I still had more good days than bad days because I chose good. A bad day is a choice, right? And so is a good day. So I'm gonna
Well,
leave it at that and let you just kind of ask any questions you might have. So
yeah. So thinking about what you remember, and you've probably been asked this a lot, but we hear about people who are in comas and they are between kind of life and death. Things they can remember things between. Do you remember from the time that you're in the coma?
no, it's really bizarre. I had no out of body experience or no dreams or nothing like that. I literally woke up 45 days later, 41 days later, right? It wasn't until day 45 I was able to actually process things and be talked to about. They told me what happened to me because I had no memory of it. I have long term memory, but I had nothing short term from the day of the avalanche. So I had no idea why I was even in the hospital. They'd explain to me why I
Oh
was
wow.
there. Had explained to me what happened to me because I had no idea. I woke up going, what am I doing here, right? And I was on a lot of medication then. Of course, my brain was still damaged then, so it was very foggy. I have very foggy memory, but I remember just being really confused, going, "What is going on? Why am I even here?" So I
How
have nothing. I
disorienting
just
is
lost
that?
45 days of my life and woke up, and that was it. There was nothing, no out of body experience, nothing like that. This is crazy.
And so you don't remember the actual accident or the
No.
time spent under the snow. And so, how disorienting would that be, though, to wake up and be in this hospital and have to get
Yeah.
an explanation of why you're there
And I
and
had
why
long
you're
term memory,
injured?
so I knew I was right at the pro level. I knew I was taking the risk. I know all that stuff, right? But I had no
Yeah.
memory of that particular day at all. Not climbing the hill, not looking at the hill, not deciding on it, nothing like that, right? So I lost like an hour. I had memory of. Eventually, it came back earlier in the day. The group was on a ridge having a snack while my buddy Tim and I were trying to repair a suspension problem I was having, and that was about two
Hmm.
hours prior to the avalanche. After that, I have no memory of it. Zero. Nothing of the day or anything. It's just gone, which is actually a blessing because I can't have PTSD or flashbacks or nightmares because I have nothing to flashback to. So
Yeah. I mean, Well, when you're thinking about that portion of memory, absolutely. It's it is interesting because I think I've read that a lot of our long-term memory formation happens during sleep, where the brain is
Right.
making decisions on which things were important enough to keep and which things just kind of go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And so that process gets interrupted, and things that would be in your short-term memory just kind of get thrown away instead
Right.
of being put into
Right.
long-term. But so once you did wake up and get some explanation for what had happened, when did you realize the extent of the injuries you had?
I think just I as far as memory goes, I'm sure I realized it right away, but I don't have much memory of that because it was so foggy of all the
Yeah.
medication and brain damage. But when I began to when I tried to walk on the first time, tried to get up and walk,
Mm,
I mean, two or three steps was it, and then eventually we're celebrating when I had 13 steps, and it was like, I mean, that's when you're going, oh my gosh, I went from being an athlete to celebrating 13 steps. That's when
yeah.
that's a reality check for you, if anything else. And so it was just, I just had to accept the fact that it was not what I wanted. It was not the life I would have chosen. It was not fun by any means. It was not, I mean, it was extremely painful. But I had a weird, like, understanding that I cannot focus on things I cannot change from the very beginning, right? It's kind of like I said, right? That
Hmm.
I've got to take the cards I was dealt, play this hand, and play it the best I possibly can, and give my boys their daddy back. And that was my whole. In fact, that's my motivation the entire time. That's what kept me from committing suicide. Was that I wanted to give my boys their daddy back. And today I've given my boys their daddy back, and I've just my I've had my second son now graduate from high school, and just this May, and it's just incredible, to think about that they were just little boys and little almost toddlers. So and now they're graduating high
Yeah.
school, and I get to go see them. My oldest got a full ride academic scholarship to college, and he's doing phenomenal, and he's getting straight A's in college. And so it's just like I would have missed out on all that, but I just fought to get my life back.
That's amazing. So how when you think about the decision, I love that decide to have a bad day. Like, did you have that thought process, or was that the way you faced life before the accident, or and this is a continuation, or is it really a new Matt that kind of thinks about it that way?
It's certainly that particular mindset is a continuation. It's gotten much stronger, of course, right? But before the avalanche, I was a pretty that again, the snowmobiling was not my full time job. Right? It was a side gig, and so my full time job per se, I was 27 years old, been promoted three times in 2 years, and I was the general sales manager at a very successful Toyota dealership selling new cars and trucks. And I was leading the team of 12 salespeople and four other managers, and I was the leading the department, right? And so I'd been promoted. And I was making really good money. So I was already had that mindset of push and drive and be successful and do your best and wake up every morning and choose to have a good day. And I was already kind of thought like that, but now
Hmm.
I'm such a more humble version of that man. I'm such a more, I guess, relatable version and down to earth version, and it has chilled me out so much. Honestly, people think it's crazy, but if I could go back and have everything back that I lost, have it all back. If somebody's said, "Here it is on a platter, you can have it," right? If they just gave it to me on a plate and
Hmm.
said, "Here it is," I would shatter that plate on the floor. I don't want to be that Matt. I want to be this Matt. I wouldn't go back even if I could. I mean, I wouldn't have met the wife I have today. I wouldn't have the
Hmm.
life I have today. Just my life path would never have crossed out with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I have no regrets.
And so, as you think about that, and by the way, having spoken to some other people who've had what would be considered huge adversity, uniformly, people say that if I could go back and not have this thing, I would choose to continue to have the thing.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting concept because we're built based on all of the things that we face from day to day, from beginning of time to
Hmm.
end of life, right? And although some of those things were not things we would have chosen at the time to go through, ultimately they build the character person that gets you to where you are today.
Yeah,
And if you're
100%.
happy with where you are today, you can't be there without having gone through those things,
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean, yeah.
it's just really interesting to kind of think about it in those terms. But how do you how do you take what you've learned and get other people to start to understand adversity and how they can overcome adversity themselves, because they're not necessarily facing what you faced, but there are lots of things that people face on a daily basis
Mhm.
that would have them feel like they can't go on. How do you help people put that into perspective?
I think that, again, getting people to realize they're not alone, for one, that
Mm,
the definition of adversity in the dictionary is distress, affliction, hardship, an unfortunate event or incident, right? Based upon that definition, every human being in this world faces that at some
mhm,
point. Is they're going to face distress, affliction, hardship, an unfortunate event or incident, right? Everyone is.
yeah.
Hopefully, never on the extreme scale I have, but there's people who have had it worse off than I have, right? So I can't look.
Hmm.
I mean, and so everybody is on the same playing field in terms of adversity. So the only question is, if we know we're all going to face it, the question is, when we do face it, are we going to react or respond?
Hmm.
Because when we react, we have it's not thought through. It's done in haste. It's done on the fly, and it's throwing a fit in the moment and getting all emotional and pissy, and that's a reaction, right? Going, this is not
Hmm.
fair. I can't believe this had to happen to me. Why this happened? Why me? Why me? Right? Or a response is preceded by thought. It doesn't say why me. It says what now. And so
Mm.
we go, okay, I don't like this. I don't like what happened to me, but I'm going to draw back. Go, take a deep breath in the moment. Go, all right, I don't like this, but what can I do with what I have, not what I used to have, right? I can't
Hmm.
I can't cry about everything I used to have. I gotta be excited for what I still do have. I still have one really good working arm. I can still walk. I can still talk. I can still move. I have so much to be thankful for. I have to have that perspective. Is I'm going to respond to adversity, not react to it.
And in your particular case, if I'm remembering some of the pieces of the story, the doctors were pretty sure you wouldn't have a lot of the function you have today.
Oh yeah,
That you, personality wise, you wouldn't get that back. You wouldn't, like, they were even suggesting that maybe speaking wouldn't be something you would do very well. Yet that's kind of what you do all the time, every day,
yeah.
right?
It is a miracle. I can't take credit for that part of it. God just did a miracle. That's the bottom line. Even doctors will admit. I spoke at a medical conference in Sun Valley, Idaho one time, and some of my rehab staff was there at the conference, so I got to reconnect with them. One of my doctors said, he goes, I really don't know how medical science can even explain your situation. He said there has to be some kind of a divine intervention. He said I'm not even a believer in God necessarily. He said, but there has to be some kind of divine, because he said at one point my speech was really slurred and I was really slow, and I struggled to process thought, and they weren't sure how
Hmm.
far I would come, and they knew I would come further than I was, but they didn't ever think I'd be to the point I am today, where I can run my own business and process my own financial statements, and build build my own advertising, and build my own Facebook following, and do
Amazing.
podcasts and blogs and buy all the equipment. And who would have thought, so, and then stand on the stage and speak in front of a couple thousand people, and be just free doing it, so it's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about going through a considerably darker time and contemplating ending your life. Can you talk a little bit about what was happening then
Yeah.
and what really got you to think differently?
You know, I really, one thing I didn't talk about was the worst injury of all of them, worse than breaking my neck, honestly, worse than paralyzing my arm, worse than, I mean, you can't even understand how bad it is until you've had it. But I had phantom nerve pain in my paralyzed hand and arm, right? So
Mm,
unbelievable shooting, burning, intense nerve pain. Like, we're talking like intense. It would just like felt like kind of like when you go outside and your hand gets cold, you come back inside, it gets hot too fast. That burning feeling. Times
Mm-hmm.
that by 20, you get in the ballpark. That's the kind of burning it is, and it's always and it would shoot sometimes in pulsations. And I was on heavy medication for it. I was on, at the very beginning, I was on 8 hydrocodone, 7.55 pretty good size, of
Wow.
three Lyrica, and a couple Oxycontin all in one day, just to make it bearable. And I kicked the Oxycontin cold turkey, which is not a good idea, but I did anyway. Kicked it, and got back to 6 hydros and a few Lyrica, and that's all I could get back to. I could not scale back any further and still make it through the day. And so I was in extreme pain. All the doctors could tell me for a remedy at that point in time was long-term medication. We just got to wait and see. It's a complex injury. We don't really know how to do anything with it. There's not a lot of options for it right now. We just got to get you on a medication strategy that works for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'd wake up like midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning, these weird pulsations where it would just pulsate, burn, 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 then pull back, and then pulsate, burn, pull back. It was like weird. I don't know what caused it. I have no idea why. But I woke up one time, I don't know, it was midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I would literally cry until my pillowcase was damp, like just soaking tears,
Mm.
going, God, please get me out of this. Why? Because here I am on drugged out of my mind. I'm a druggie and still in pain because phantom pain, as you may know, is a false signal from your brain to your
Mm-hmm.
spinal cord, or sorry, from your spinal cord to your brain, right? Your spinal cord, the place of injury, is telling your brain that your hand hurts and arm hurts. So because the spinal cord tells the brain it hurts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never stops, right? It's phantom. And so I had these pulsations, and all I could hear was a doctor's voice run through my head in the middle of the night saying long term medication. And I was like, I'm not gonna be a druggie for life, and I was yelling at God. And in fact, I don't use much profanity. I'm not gonna, but I said, F it. I said, fuck it. I'm done,
Yeah.
God. I said, God, you didn't get the job done right the first time. I'm gonna finish this. I'd already kind of thought about how I would do it. I got out of bed, got my snowmobile gear bag out of the closet, began to piece on all my riding gear, pull my pants into place and boots into place. And my plan was to gear up, head to toe all my riding gear. At that point in time, I was driving a little bit, some. I was going to drive down the nearby big tall bridge over Snake River with all my gear on, slide the helmet from the avalanche back of my head, and jump off. In that condition, with all that gear on, I definitely would have drowned or died, right?
Oh
And I
man.
was very serious about doing it. I was gearing up, ready to go, and I was like, what I yelled to God was, "You didn't get the job done right the first time. I'm gonna gear up and finish this right." And so I sat down on the bed, began to pull my jersey into place, and right then, I guess you could say that God knew what would stop me not dead, but alive in my tracks. I mean, He brought back a thought right in that moment of my middle son Ethan, who was very young at that point in time. Again, he's 18 now, but he he loved doggies when he was younger, still does today. But he loved
Mm.
doggies, and he didn't have his own dog, so his grandparents' dog, Sadie, was his dog. He took care of her and bathed her and walked her and just loved that dog, right? She was a black lab. And so Sadie, recently before the suicide, thought Sadie had died of old age. And Ethan was just completely crushed. I mean, he was just
Mm.
like, my doggy's gone, Dad. How can I don't understand. It's like she didn't understand the permanence of death, right? And so I'd found like by himself in the bedroom like 5 days after the dog died. He was by himself like crying in the bedroom. I went in there and nudged up to him. I said, Buddy, what's wrong? He said, Daddy, my doggy's gone. She's not going to come back ever. And I'd said, But buddy, she's in heaven. You get to see her again someday. It's okay. And the thought that came back in the middle of the near suicide was that Ethan had said at that moment, But Daddy, I don't want her to be in heaven. I want her to be here with me. And the thought just hit me
Wow.
with twice the force of the avalanche. In fact, this is a bold statement, but I'm going to make it anyway because only time ever in my life I believe I heard the audible voice of God. I heard an audible voice, like a still small but deep and powerful voice, said, Matt, his doggy's gone and he's crushed. What happens if his daddy's gone? And I just fell back in the bed again, just gushed tears. And I mean, the pain of
Unbelievable.
losing his dog was really going to dissipate pretty quickly, right? But the pain of losing his daddy goes on for a lifetime. There's no way. And I erased that plan from the drawing board. How in the world could I take my boy's daddy away? And I mean, I've never cried like that in my life. I wept just deep tears and said, my prayer became, God, Give me the strength to give my boys their daddy back. Give me the strength. I want to give my boys their daddy back.
Wow.
So, I mean, I
Unbelievable.
thank God I didn't take my life because eventually my pain doctor in Lewiston and met a doctor at a a conference in Phoenix. And the doctor was pioneering the surgery. He and his dad more or less invented it. It's called a dorsal entry zone lesion. So I flew out to Chicago, met the guy, and flew out a second time, had the surgery. They went into my upper neck up here and they cut the muscle in half to spread it apart to access my spinal cord directly. Then they cut your spinal column open, not your cord, of course, but your column, how exposing spinal fluid and all. Scoot your spine over a little bit, and then take a hot electrified needle and put lesions
Hmm.
across the nerve roots and cut that signal off. So today I have some pain, but it's not even remotely what it once was. I'm on nothing narcotic. I take a light dose of a non-narcotic one called Lyrica, and that's it.
Hmm.
I have nothing else. So I was on
Man.
8 medications in the beginning. Now I'm on one, so it's pretty incredible.
And that's a remarkable surgery.
Oh, it was. I had to sign off papers. I was aware of the risk of it, things like that. So, but it was well worth the risk. I was like, even if I come out in the wheelchair, it's better than living this kind of pain. It was so
In
extreme,
excruciating pain 24/7.
Yeah.
Wow. Matt, I think it's that the story itself is incredible, and what you've been able to do beyond the story is also incredible. But we we don't get to have you do a motivational talk for us, and we don't get to see you really in action. If people are interested in learning more about Matt and what you do, where do they go to find information?
They can go to just mattmotivates.com. So it's mattmotivates.com. So it links right up. Piece of cake. It's got all my videos on there and information and booking. And you can find my direct phone number, reach out to me. And I've got an event planner that helps book speeches for me and stuff. So I'd love to come to your church, to your school, to your organization, to your workplace. I do a lot of workplace on the job safety stuff because I was technically on the job that day, right? Doing the stuff
Yeah.
you're conditioned to do every day. And we used all the right equipment and it saved my life. But I talk about a lot of things in regards to on the job safety. And so I fit almost anywhere, honestly. I can fit almost anywhere. I can make anyone, I can relate to a lot of people and I can change a lot of lives. I really believe it can be life changing. So.
And are the links for your books there as well?
Yeah, that you can buy it there, or you can buy it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Google Books or anywhere like that. So the new
Awesome.
version just came out. I just published it in earlier this year, and it's I went through and enhanced a couple things. My writing improved, and then I added a bonus chapter with my new wife and family and stuff in there. So and I added a subtitle. The new subtitle is Two Hands: A Life Radically Changed in 12 Seconds. So the book has always been called Two Hands because I live without
Yeah.
two hands, right? But then the new subtitle is A Life Radically Changed in 12 Seconds. So because from the
Amazing.
time the avalanche fractured to the time I was crushed in the tree and buried was 12 seconds.
Unbelievable. And so I will make sure to provide all those links in the
Yeah, thank
description
you.
of the episode. That way, people who are out there driving around or doing other things can point to the description and
Yeah.
know how to get in contact with you.
I just know that I just started working on a new project, possibly partnering with Voyage Media, where there
Mm.
might be a movie coming out or a documentary about my story as well. So it'll be pretty cool.
Oh, that would be incredible.
We'll see if that all works out. There's a lot to that, getting financing behind it and all that kind of stuff, so, but
Well, Matt, I got to thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate you telling your story and just the way that you talk about what happened and just seeing the motivation in your eyes. I mean, it's just amazing. And so hopefully people listening will get something out of this. And you never know that person that really needs to hear that today. I'm glad that we were able to get this story recorded so that they
me
can
too,
hear it.
man. I love it. I consider myself a full-time encourager, so I hope you've been encouraged by this.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
If you've made it this far, then I have to thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something new and enjoyed listening to the discussion as much as I enjoyed having it. I'd love to hear from you about the show because we're working really hard to bring you great content and the feedback really helps us get better. If you like what you've heard or watched, for those of you who are streaming out on YouTube, then take a split second to give us a thumbs up or a like. It really helps other people like you find the show too. And no one likes to miss out on the good stuff, so go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't have to wonder when or if there's a new episode. And until next time, stay remarkable.